If you walk into any shopping mall today, chances are you'll see that logo in the shoe section, Skechers, with that American streetwise swagger. You might think of chunky sneakers, the delights, or that memory foam insole that feels like stepping on a cloud. But you probably don't know that this brand, now worth nearly $10 billion a year, almost never came to be. Let's go back to 1990. A middle-aged man named Robert Greenberg was sitting in a law office in Los Angeles. In front of him was a document. He had just been voted off the board of the company he founded, LA Gear. Not because sales were bad. On the contrary, the shoes he made were selling like crazy. The problem was a strategic disagreement. He wanted to move into more serious athletic footwear. The board wanted to stick with the mass-market fashion business. And he lost. A founder thrown out of his own company, with less than $200,000 left in his pocket. For most people, that would be the end of the story. Not for Robert. He spent 2 weeks in his garage, smoking pack after pack of cigarettes, trying to figure out one thing. The big players were all fighting over pro sports. But what did ordinary people really need when they put on shoes every day? Something comfortable, good-looking, and easy to walk around in. That market space was almost completely empty. And so Skechers was born. From that garage, by 2025, it had grown into a global giant with a net worth of $9.5 billion, nearly 18,000 employees, and products sold in more than 170 countries. Today, let's tell the story of that comeback, getting kicked out and then rising from the ashes. Robert Greenberg wasn't born with a silver spoon. He grew up in a solidly middle-class family in Los Angeles. His father ran a small accounting firm. His mother was a homemaker. From an early age, he showed one trait. He loved taking things apart. Clocks, radios, the neighbor's broken bicycle chain. Not because he was born a tinkerer, but because he couldn't stand the idea of just throw it away. After high school, he went to college but dropped out after 1 year. He felt that sitting in a classroom listening to theory was far less useful than going to a factory and watching machines run. In his early 20s, he landed a job at a small shoe trading company in Los Angeles, doing everything: loading goods, tracking orders, arranging shipping, and occasionally helping clients with simple designs. He quickly learned the entire shoe business from design to delivery. In 1979, Robert made a decision that would shape the next decade of his life. He co-founded LA Gear with a few partners. At the time, Nike dominated professional running and Reebok ruled the gym. LA Gear's strategy was smart. Instead of competing head-on in technology, they focused on fashion-oriented athletic shoes, especially for women and children. They made shoes colorful, good-looking, and accessory-like. The strategy worked. By the late 1980s, LA Gear's annual sales approached $1 billion, making it one of the fastest-growing footwear brands in America. But problems followed. Robert wanted to take LA Gear upmarket into more serious athletic performance, real basketball shoes and training shoes. The board believed the mass fashion market was a gold mine and saw no reason to fight Nike on their home turf. The argument lasted a year. In the end, Robert was voted off the board. He later recalled, "That was the darkest day of my life. The company I built didn't want me anymore." But after the darkness, he didn't collapse. He locked himself in his garage and started to review everything. He did one thing that turned out to be critical. He pulled out all the customer complaint and return records from LA Gear over the previous few years. He found a striking pattern. What customers disliked most was not a lack of fashion. It was discomfort. Most athletic shoes were either too hard, too heavy, or had soles that rubbed. Professional athletes could tolerate that, but ordinary people couldn't. What ordinary people wanted was simple: a good-looking shoe that didn't hurt their feet after a whole day. That discovery became the seed of Skechers. In 1992, Robert took his own savings, $200,000, rented a small office near Manhattan Beach in Los Angeles, and put up a sign that said Skechers. The name came from Southern California youth slang. Skechers meant people who are always on the move, always hanging out. The name perfectly captured the brand's positioning: not professional athletes, just ordinary, active young people. He did something that went against industry common sense. He decided not to make serious athletic shoes. Nike had Air Jordan, Reebok had the Pump. Those were for the basketball court and the gym. Ordinary people wore them to work, to go shopping, to walk the dog, which wasn't really a good fit. What Robert wanted to make was something between a sports shoe and a casual shoe. It looked like a sports shoe, but was softer than a running shoe. It had fashion appeal, but was tougher than a canvas sneaker. In the early 1990s, that category had almost no serious player. The first product was a chunky soled street-style sneaker, inspired by the skateboard kids of Los Angeles. Thick sole, rounded toe, chunky stitching, carrying a sun-baked California casualness. Instead of blanketing the market with ads, Robert first placed the shoes in a few trendy LA boutiques and skate shops. They sold out within a week, and the shop owners' phones kept ringing. He knew he was onto something. The real launchpad for Skechers was the 1992 Los Angeles Shoe Show, then the biggest footwear trade fair in North America. Robert rented a tiny booth and neatly displayed a few sample pairs. Unlike other booths covered wall-to-wall with shoes, his was as clean as a blank sheet of paper. Almost no one stopped on the first morning. Then in the afternoon, a buyer from the East Coast passed by, picked up a shoe, turned it over, looked at the sole, and asked, "Who made this?" Robert said, "I did. A new brand." The buyer asked, "How many can you make?" Robert did some mental math and gave a number. The buyer signed an order for 5,000 pairs on the spot. By the end of that shoe fair, Skechers had taken orders for more than 100,000 pairs. For a brand only a few months old, that was manna from heaven. But Robert's reaction wasn't excitement, it was anxiety. The orders were there, but production capacity wasn't. He flew overnight to Asia, visiting factory after factory, looking for partners willing to handle small batches, high quality, and fast delivery. Eventually, he signed manufacturing agreements in several cities in South Korea and China. On the marketing side, Skechers took a very different path from LA Gear. LA Gear relied on TV commercials and mass-market shelf space. Skechers focused on print ads and celebrity endorsements. The first brand ad ran as a double-page spread in Rolling Stone and Sports Illustrated. A young person wearing Skechers chunky sneakers, standing on a skateboard, with a Los Angeles beach sunset in the background. No slogans, no discounts, just a small line. Skechers, for people who move. That sell a lifestyle, not product features approach was still fresh at the time. In its first year, Skechers generated $1.5 million in sales. That number wasn't huge, but the growth rate was stunning. More importantly, it proved that Robert's instinct, the one the LA Gear Board had rejected, was right. There was a vast blue ocean between professional sports and pure fashion. In the mid to late 1990s, Skechers' chunky sneakers spread quickly across the U.S. market. But rapid growth brought serious supply chain pain. Some distributors reported problems with certain batches, soles coming unglued, wearing out too fast. Robert flew to the Asian factories himself. The cause turned out to be that some contract manufacturers, rushing to meet deadlines, had cut corners on glue curing time. He did something on the spot. He called together the quality control heads of all the factories and announced a new rule. Every batch, before leaving the factory, had to be randomly sampled and put into a temperature-controlled aging chamber for 72 hours. Any factory that couldn't meet the standard would lose its orders. That year, Skechers' return rate dropped from 2.3% to 0.7%. The trade-off was a production cycle about 2 weeks longer. But Robert had done the math. The cost of higher inventory was far smaller than the cost of losing brand trust. That decision laid the foundation for something even more important. While competitors were still using ordinary EVA insoles, Skechers quietly began developing memory foam insoles. In 2002, Skechers introduced memory foam insoles in several casual styles. The material had originally been used in medical rehabilitation. It is sensitive to pressure and temperature, molding to the shape of the foot and then springing back. In plain English, when you step on it, the insole remembers the shape of your foot. After 5 minutes, it feels like you've worn the shoes for years. That product innovation caused a phenomenal market reaction. Customers started telling each other, "Go try that Skechers memory foam. It's like walking on sand." Memory foam became Skechers' strongest moat. The technology created a barrier that took other brands years to catch up with. At the same time, the rise of the athleisure trend, the idea that people wear sports shoes as everyday clothing, not just for working out, perfectly aligned with Skechers' positioning. The company expanded from footwear into apparel, socks, backpacks, and accessories. No company has an entirely smooth ride. In 2008, the global financial crisis hit the retail industry hard. With less disposable income, consumers cut back on non-essential purchases. Skechers' U.S. sales fell nearly 20% at one point. Robert's response had three parts. First, cut costs. Freeze all non-essential hiring. Reduce travel and advertising budgets. Second, clear inventory. He identified every slow-moving style in every warehouse and sold them to discount chains, generating immediate cash flow. Third, and most important, accelerate international expansion. While others were retreating, he personally flew to Europe and Asia to negotiate with local distributors. From 2009 to 2011, Skechers tripled its retail points in Europe and quadrupled sales in Asia. After 2010, Skechers pushed hard into China, signing multiple local celebrity endorsers and planting the idea of comfortable casual wear into the consumer's mind. The Delight series became a phenomenal hit among young Chinese women. By 2019, China accounted for nearly 20% of Skechers' global revenue. At the same time, Robert pushed digital transformation. Skechers redesigned its global website and e-commerce platform, supporting multi-currency payments and localized logistics. During the 2020 pandemic, when physical stores were closing, online sales grew more than 70% year-on-year. Of course, crises weren't limited to the economy. Around 2015, Skechers faced a wave of product liability lawsuits. Some consumers complained that certain models had insufficient outsole grip, causing falls. Robert didn't send a legal army to fight hardball. He did something smarter. He publicly admitted that the testing standards for those batches had been insufficient, immediately recalled the affected products, and introduced tougher slip resistance standards for outdoor styles. Forbes commented, "In an era when most brands would rather spend $1 million on lawsuits than $100,000 on recalls, Skechers' approach was both unusual and wise." That move not only defused the crisis, but won back consumer trust. Today, Skechers is no longer a garage startup. As of 2025, annual revenue exceeds $9.5 billion, with nearly 18,000 employees and products sold in more than 170 countries. Its market cap New York Stock Exchange is comfortably above $10 billion. Robert Greenberg's personal net worth has also surpassed $9.5 billion, with nearly 18,000 employees and products sold in more than 170 countries. Its market cap New York Stock Exchange is comfortably above $10 billion. Robert Greenberg's personal net worth has also surpassed $3 billion. Yet every day, he still reads customer comments on social media, and every week, he personally test wears several new sample shoes. There's also a lesser-known side of this brand. Through various channels, Skechers has donated more than 20 million pairs of shoes to children in need around the world. The program is called Bob's, a play on the brand's name. For every specially marked pair sold, Skechers donates a pair to a child in need. Robert Greenberg's story teaches us one thing: success is not a straight line. It's a curve broken by fault lines. The harder you fall at one point, the wider the view when you stand up again. He was thrown out of his own company, but instead of wallowing in anger, he spent 2 weeks figuring out a question that would change an industry. What kind of shoe do ordinary people really need? Then, over more than 20 years, he wrote the answer into the shoe cabinets of 170 countries. If you look down at your own shoes right now, they might be Skechers. If they are, you should know that those shoes started with a man smoking pack after pack of cigarettes in a garage. See you next time.